a panel of speakers where we'll be talking about the impact of COVID-19 on regional and global internet governance. And I'll quickly introduce the different members of the panel. We'll have Mr. Miguel Estrada, who is called Nacho. He's the general manager of LAC-TLD. We've already heard from Mr. Bevel Wooding of ARIN, and he'll be a part of the panel. Mr. Kevin Swift from LACNIC will represent LACNIC on the panel. Mr. Albert Daniels of ICANN, we've seen, and also Mr. Shernan Osepa, we've also seen. So I'll move seamlessly into that panel now, and invite first Mr. Miguel Estrada, General Manager of LACNIC, to address us on the impact of COVID-19 as seen from LAC-TLD. Nacho, please.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you quite well.
That's good. Okay. So I'm gonna turn this into presentation mode. Can you see my screen?
We can see it. We can see it. It
okay.
Looks very good. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I cannot turn it into full screen. I don't know why, but well, I'm gonna do it anyway, like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, my name, as Nigel was telling you, my name is Miguel Ignacio Estrada. I'm the general manager of LAC-TLD. I'm gonna tell you a little about how the COVID-19 has impacted on the CCTLDs of the region. When I say the region is Latin America and the Caribbean, I have some little insights from the Caribbean itself, from our members from the Caribbean, but I'm going to be speaking in general. So what is LAC-TLD? LAC-TLD is the Association of Country Code Top-Level Domains from Latin America and the Caribbean. It was created in August 20th in 1998 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. We are based at La Casa de Internet. If you can see Albert Daniels' background, he seems to be familiar. Our vision is to promote an internet that contributes to the economic and social development by using domain names. And our mission is to be an active agent in the development of the internet and its governance through the association and its members. Involvement in the main topics related to the internet, domain names and digital presence. So this is our membership right now. We have 29 associates, 5 affiliates, and 8 observers. You can see the different dots. The blue ones are the associates, the observers are the green ones, and the affiliates are the red ones. We have many projects going on, but I'm gonna be talking about just 2 because they were really important. What came later from the pandemic. We have this project called, and it's not a project anymore, it's a reality. This is the Unicast Cloud. This project started in December 2016 during the IGF at Guadalajara. It's a non-profit collaborative network that seeks to strengthen the infrastructure, the DNS infrastructure and stability in Latin America and the Caribbean. The idea of this cloud is to have a copy of the zones of our CCTLDs. This is free for the CCTLDs, and this is not just for LAC-TLD members. It is open for any CCTLD that would like to join. This is an open project. Right now we are serving 13 CCTLDs. And we have nodes around the region, and also we have nodes in the US and in Europe. We have 2 nodes in Europe. So this is a really good project. Actually, yesterday we received the Frida prize for one of the best projects in the region. We are really proud about that. This is a really good project, and it had its impact during the pandemic. I'm going to let you know later. This is our nodes and clients composition. You'll see the blue dots are the nodes, and the clients or users, because it's free, are the orange ones. We have 12 LAC ccTLDs using the node. We have TT, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Guadalupe from the Caribbean. And also we have the LACNIC rebirth DNS. This project is really useful for ccTLDs and also for nodes. And nodes, becoming a node, it's also open for any kind of organization that has the infrastructure to do so. Usually it's better for IXPs, but many other organizations like ISPs could also join. And this brings a lot of benefits for them too, and for their clients in the case of IXPs and ISPs. And this is another project we have been working on. This is the illegal online content forum. The goals of this project is to train and update the LEAs from the LAC territories on the internet, the ecosystem organizations, and the different mechanisms that exist to interact with those responsible for online content. The idea is to raise awareness that acting on the logical layer, that means the roots, the IPs, and the domain names on the internet, should never be the first step and can have unexpected consequences. The idea is to try for the authorities to don't hurt the internet with their decisions. And also to create a space to establish networks and exchange experiences and best practices. The participants have been judges, prosecutors, and LEAs from the LAC region. We have these two activities, in-person activities, one workshop in Bogota for 9 countries in South America, another in Cancun. This was in the beginning of this year. We had 40 participants from 8 countries, from Central, North America, and Spanish-speaking Caribbean territories. And the third one was meant to be in the Caribbean, but it was canceled due to the pandemic. So I hope we can reactivate this in-person workshop soon, and we'll be going to the Caribbean, I hope. And also we had 2 webinars, one with Interpol, another with the cybercrime unit of the Public Ministry of Argentina. So what were the challenges for us, for our members during the pandemic? This was our approach to the pandemic. Once the pandemic was declared, we have an exchange meeting with our members to see how they were doing and what were their needs. Everything was kind of under control. There were some challenges I'm going to be telling you later, but everything on the technical point of view, everything was under control. Then we hosted a business continuity webinar in order for ccTLDs that hadn't implemented the business continuity plan before could do so, or could have best practices for other ccTLDs that already did. Then we conducted a survey for our members on the impact of the pandemic. Then we hosted another webinar on remote work optimization. And at the end, we conducted a second survey for our members on domain registers with terms related to COVID. Nigel, I'm trying to be as fast as I can. Let me know if I should do it a little faster. So
I think you're doing okay.
Okay, great. So regarding business continuity, our region, and you may know, our region is prepared for natural disasters. They keep going and going on, and we have some practice regarding this. This is not a natural disaster, but it's kind of a contingency like that. For example, in our previous LACTLD report, this is a kind of a magazine we have once a year. We have been talking about disaster preparedness, and we are used to because of hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and so on around our region. So regarding business continuity within our membership, the situation was not of great technical concern. As I was telling you before, many CCTLDs already had a business continuity plan implemented. And in case of interruption of their operations, most CCTLDs have Unicast services working that can respond to in case of an emergency. And almost half of them use our Unicast Cloud, the project that I was telling you before. So we were really good regarding technical concerns. There were not technical concerns. From the operational point of view, there were some challenges to address. Many of our CCTLDs are still using cash or checks for registering and renewing domain names. This was something they had to address. Also, domain expirations in the first days of the pandemic were everyone or every businesses were kind of rearranging their stuff at their homes and stuff. Some expirations were about to fall. Domains were about to get renewed, and they didn't. So many of our members had a proactive view, and extensions were granted in some cases, and some others, domains, for example, for governments, were automatically renewed. And regarding staff, in general, the remote work was the chosen mode. The mode was chosen, and in several cases, adequate equipment had to be provided to employees: computers, chairs, headphones, headsets, microphones, and stuff, in order to do their work as they should. And in cases where it was 100% necessary, rotating in-person schemes were generated, for example, for data centers and stuff, but always with the proper health protocols. Regarding domain name registrations, there was big growth in the region. During the first weeks of the pandemic, some registries noted a slight decrease, and we believe that this was related to the rearrangement of the personnel of the different companies, and then proactive measures were introduced for those domains that were close to expiring, as I was telling you before. And in the following weeks, there was a recovery in the numbers of registrations and renewals. They went back to normal values, and then the registrations began to grow. So on April, year-on-year growth exceeded April of 2019 by 24 percentage points. This was a really big growth. And then on May, it went up to 64, and on June to 57 points. So the second quarter of 2020 was the highest quarterly growth peak since 2016. And due to, if you see the growth on the latest years, it was the registrations were not growing so much, so this is a tremendous growth for the region. More than 330,000 domains were registered in the LAC region, and well, historical growth levels for several of our members. As you can see, the members who have public information as Chile, Brazil, and stuff, they had really big growth. What is the explanation for us? Well, the migration of many companies and institutions to the online world, and some new ventures that arose from new needs. What we have to do is to evaluate in a year if the negative effect that has impacted on small and medium-sized companies has its correlation on domain name renewals. So we're not sure if this growth is going to keep the same, or maybe it's going to be going down on the next year. What about DNS abuse during the pandemic? And these are my final 2 or 3 slides. So what we do call DNS abuse, well, it's obvious that what is illegal offline is illegal online. So this is what we call abuse. And in addition, there are certain consensus on some uses considered as abusive, like phishing, malware distribution, farming, botnets, and spam in the case it is used as a route for the above mentioned. So there were some concerns about the pandemic. Some media, mainly in Europe, spoke about increasing domain registration for legal purposes. For example, for sale of remedies or treatment for COVID-19, non-authorized, and anti-vaccine materials and so on. And also the transfer of companies' operation to employees' homes could also cause additional problems due to abuse in the DNS. So what happened in LAC? LAC conducted, as I was telling you before, a study in July of this year. We had a participation of 85% of our members, and 1,739 domains were registered, including words such as coronavirus, COVID, virus, SARS, corona, pandemic, and so on. And they only represented 0.58% of the total registries of the period. As I was telling you before, there were 330K. So this was a really little amount of them. And only 11.5% of the surveyed CCTLDs received reports of abusive or malicious use in these kind of domains. So the reports represent less than 1% of the domain with these terms. So nothing to worry about. These are usual percents for our region. And as I was telling you before about the illegal online content forum, many of these reports were quickly addressed due to the close relationships built with the LEAs from the region in our illegal content forum. And so that we believe this is a really important and interesting event and project for addressing DNS abuse on the region. So that's all from me. Any CCTLDs that are not already members of LACTLD, we invite you to participate in the Unicast Cloud. This is for free and you don't have to be a member. So if this is something you think it's worth for your CCTLD, please join. You have my contact.
Yes, thank you very much, Nacho. We'll compile the Q&A for after the other speakers speak. I'll invite Mr. Bevel Wooding now from ARIN to give his comments. Let me see. Bevel, if you have slides.
No slides.
We need to stop share. Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no slides. Thanks again, Nigel. And again, morning, everyone. I think the opening comments pretty much set the backdrop for what I'd like to share in terms of what ARIN has been doing on the IGF front over the past year and more specifically over the past few months in response to the COVID pandemic. I think we'd all be more or less aware of the common challenges that the region has traditionally faced. A lot of those challenges have been amplified in the last few months as a result of the lockdowns and the public health and safety measures that have had to be taken. What I found interesting and what I think is going to be very relevant to our discussions is how that has put a spotlight on the issue of internet infrastructure on the issue of local digital content, and on the issue of the quality of service of the internet and internet connectivity access and the devices to support a rapid transition to online service delivery. I think that has pretty much defined the discourse that we've been engaging over the past several months, and it has concentrated or amplified the work that we've been doing over the past several years. The issues around disaster risk reduction, resilience building, the conversations that have been taking place within governments and within the private sector around financing development initiatives, ensuring that there is an appropriate level of what many call indigenous capacity to support and sustain these technology-based and technology-driven transformations that are in progress, have really captivated our attention at ARIN, and have shaped a lot of the interactions that we've had in response to and as a strategic approach to the issue of supporting and accelerating the Caribbean digital agenda. There are several things that have been coming up that I want to highlight, and then I will speak specifically about the areas of focus that we have been concentrating on. One is the issue of the quality of the internet service. Discussions around internet resilience and discussions around internet or network autonomy have amplified. And I think that's very significant as borders close and as people reckon with the notion of a local internet, or the aspect of the internet that is responsible for delivering local transactions and local services across local networks. The issue of our networks, in fact, as resilient and as redundant as we need them to be for these systems to really carry the load and responsibility of national transactions. That question, that debate continues, and I think it is an important debate because it speaks to the increase that we've been seeing in attention to establishing or strengthening critical internet infrastructure, such as internet exchange points. Persons, countries, businesses seeking to better understand the issue of content caching. And one I think of the most significant amplified conversations over the past few months has been the issue of data sovereignty. If my information, my critical government information, my sensitive business information is in the cloud, and we have the kinds of restrictions that we now expect will continue for some time, should I be looking at bringing that data closer to home under my laws and inside of my jurisdiction? And that, of course, has very real implications for how national networks are built out, how national policies and national laws evolve to take into consideration some of these digital developments that are taking place. And also has implications for the regulatory environment and the context within which institutions, entrepreneurs, businesses, individuals are incentivized to build out the national infrastructure, the national digital infrastructure, the national technology and telecommunications infrastructure. So while we're seeing a common set of considerations across the region, what we're recognizing is that how each of the territories are dealing with it is a reflection of the unique local challenges and circumstances that they're wrestling with. And I from where we stand as a regional internet registry responsible for number deployment across many Caribbean territories, one thing that is clear, and one thing that I think needs much stronger debate, is common approaches to these issues would benefit all. It will benefit the region, it will benefit the national states that are grappling and wrestling with the rapid acceleration of digital plans and transformation agendas. And I think when you balance that against other threats that remain in the environment, the threat of hurricanes, the vulnerability to climate change, and you realize that our movement to getting services online is not going to stop with COVID. As a matter of fact, it is expected to only increase. then these conversations around what is the framework within which we consider the public policy, the regulatory environment, the national, let's call it education and capacity building context, and the infrastructure build out and acceleration of critical infrastructure, that those things really can benefit from a much heightened level of sharing of best practices, exchange of ideas, and conversations around who's doing what where and how effective it is. That to me has to be underpinned by an entirely different and novel approach to data collection, because what we've recognized already is that it is very difficult to understand how investments in telecommunications infrastructure, how investments in policy development, and even competition on the local content and services stage is actually translating into national economic and social benefit. And for that understanding to be clearer, the transformation process has to be measured. So one of the things that ARIN is doing, and we see this as part of our the fulfillment of our mandate to ensure the stability and security of the global internet, is we have been partnering or collaborating with the OECD to use their digital transformation framework as a basis or as a model for mapping and tracking Caribbean digital transformation developments. A pilot is being discussed for initially for the OEC, as the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Territories. But the hope is that it could present us with a model that all of the countries could use to understand what elements need to be tracked real time for governments and for the private sector and for citizens to make informed decisions about how they go about their different roles and parts as it relates to the digital transformation agenda. And I hope this is making sense, because when we look at the evolution of the Caribbean internet governance discussions, we have to track it against the changing environment that we find ourselves in. And issues that would have been theoretical conversations about privacy, about whether or not the Caribbean needs internet exchange points, whether or not we can rely or depend on the global cloud versus local cloud, all of those things have been distilled very quickly and very swiftly into a clarified understanding that without robust local internet infrastructure, you cannot build dependable, reliable, secure, scalable, or resilient local internet services. And local internet services is exactly what the Caribbean needs right now to navigate the need for online schools, online healthcare, online business services, entrepreneurs and micro enterprise leaders and owners who must now figure out how to move their businesses online without having to open an account in North America or Europe just to be able to continue their livelihood. Those are real issues now in ways that they were not a short 12 months ago. So from our standpoint, what we've done is we've taken the ARIN Caribbean Forum, which already had 3 very distinct streams: a policy stream, a technical community stream, and a law enforcement and public safety stream. And we have honed the conversations within each of those streams to reflect the priorities of the region right now. So with the technical community, we have been working very closely with CaribNOG to support the current push to strengthen and increase the number of internet exchange points in the region. Over the last 4 months, we've had several webinars looking at the specific issues around success stories within the Caribbean as it relates to internet exchange point development. And those have been very, very practical in terms of sharing understandings about what works, what we have discovered, what the statistics say about how IXPs work in small island developing states and in small markets, and how do technical operators need to adjust their mindset and their approach around setting up autonomous networks, deploying IPv6, establishing connections to a local exchange point to be able to better support the increasing demand for local services. On the public policy front, as you know, we've been working with the CTU to ensure that the Caribbean single ICT space and the Caribbean 21st century government agenda is properly articulated before the governments in the region, not just in the format of virtual meetings, but in conversations with government ministers and officials to help translate some of the global discussions and trends into local and regionally relevant action plans. I think that has been a very important component inside of this, because governments play a key part in shaping the regional landscape. The largest employer, their public policy determines to a large extent the extent to which things move forward quickly or slowly. And at the present time, when everyone wants to move quickly, governments understanding how this technological platform can best be deployed or leveraged for the national good, those translation conversations become quite key. So the Public Policy Forum has taken on new life and new meaning over the past several months. And then as it relates to law enforcement and public safety, Aaron has been working with various agencies across the region to ensure that our role in terms of things like the Who Is directory and in terms of our collaboration with law enforcement agencies across the region and around the world can be turned toward the region to help with increasing collaborations, building out networks, and sharing experiences and practices. And we also plan in the coming months to turn our attention to helping law officers, judges, lawyers, attorneys, to understand how some of these internet issues that are already increasing as they move to online courts and e-filing and electronic case management, how some of these issues translate into requirements for ensuring the effective use of the internet in the law enforcement and public safety arena. These initiatives are just the start, and they cannot exist in a vacuum. And so the conversations that we will be having over the coming days as part of this the 16th edition of the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, we hope will also help to continue to shape and define how we go about supporting the region. As a regional internet registry, number resources, ASN's IPv6 is a key part of what we do, but it's not all that we do. And so the support on the public policy front, the support on the public safety front with cybersecurity, helping increase and amplify the conversation around fake news and misinformation, which we see as one of the other key dynamics that has been in the mix over the past few months. All of these things speak to the stability, dependability, and reliability of the internet for the region. We prepare to play our part, and we hope to continue doing our work together, not just with the CTU, but with the other IORGs, LACNIC, ICANN, ISOC. We've all been in active conversations, and I think that will only continue in the months to come. That's it for me now, Nigel. Then back to you.
Thank you very much, Bevel. Good to hear about the ARIN initiatives and actually the initiatives about tracking digital transformation around the Caribbean. I think that's one of that kind of data captures some of the things that we need to do a lot more of. I think all of our organizations in that respect. Okay, I'll move on now and invite Mr. Albert Daniels from ICANN to give his remarks with respect to impact of COVID-19 on the ICANN organization and some of the work they're doing.
Thank you very much, Nigel. When we look at the impact of COVID-19 on regional and global internet governance, and particularly on ICANN, I am actually tempted to be controversial and say that it has been business as usual. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say this is that COVID-19 has not really given us a holiday from the important internet governance work that is necessary on a day-to-day basis. From a technical standpoint, I think all internet users, and perhaps even more so now, are expecting the internet to be available, stable, and secure. So if anything else, I mean, we have continued to work and perhaps even work harder, more Zoom meetings, increase capacity when it comes to this whole issue of the internet and internet governance. So, I mean, we've already heard from Nacho at LAC-TLD. Yes, there were a few new domain name registrations, and this is something that we have seen globally. New domain name registrations related to COVID-19, the usual suspects attempting, the bad actors attempting to deprive you of your hard-earned money by using the COVID-19 domains. But while there have been, while there has been some of that, it has not been excessive. It's been a very small percentage, as we saw from Nacho's statistics. So this is why I'm tempted to say that COVID-19 has put us in a situation where we are working differently. There's more remote work, but the work that we are required to do from an internet governance perspective continues. And as I said in my opening remarks, I mean, we still have the issues of internet security to deal with, internet issues related to the root server system, the domain name system, the robustness and resiliency of the internet. And we still have the overarching issue of the Caribbean needing to make a substantive input to global internet governance policies. So COVID-19 has not really changed much of that for us, which is why the key point that I want to leave our viewers and listeners with this morning is some of the work that we've been doing with one of the structures within ICANN, which we refer to as the Caribbean Working Group. The Caribbean Working Group has traditionally been an informal structure meant to mobilize and coordinate inputs from Caribbean stakeholders into global internet policies. Some of the simple and practical things that we have done at ICANN meetings is whenever we had an ICANN meeting, we marshaled all of the persons from the Caribbean into one room so that they could, first of all, get to meet each other, and then secondly, have some discussions. And the discussions accomplished several things. First, we were able to look at current topics of internet governance and see how they impacted our individual countries. And also it was an opportunity for the veterans to exchange information to the newcomers, because we all know that these international meetings can be very foreboding places. When you walk into a room and you hear somebody say that the CCNSO is considering a PDP on IDNs and they have to discuss it with the GAC and ESAC, you want to turn around and run out of the room. But those are important discussions which the Caribbean has to take part in. So what we have tried to do informally is get Caribbean people to participate in these discussions. But what we have found invariably is that we get high contact, the persons will go to the meetings, and then you don't see them, for 3-4 months afterwards. So the impact on internet governance and the input from a Caribbean perspective is almost minimized because of that lack of input. So what has been happening over the last couple of months during COVID is we've been taking an introspective look at this whole structure of the Caribbean Working Group and taking a new perspective to how we are going to try to make it effective in ensuring that the Caribbean perspective features, at least in ICANN policies. And that, for example, this happens with Caribbean comments being posted during public comment periods, and most importantly, that the resultant policies which come out of the board, which come out of the supporting organizations within ICANN, reflect the needs, concerns, and views of persons from the Caribbean. This is what we are planning to do. First of all, we want to make a very specific distinction between the veteran stakeholders and the newcomer stakeholders. And we know the veterans. I mean, the names are well known, the Bevel Woodings, the Nigel Casimir's, Carlton Samuels, Devon Tiluxing, and so on. These people are the ones who are currently suffering from volunteer burnout. They have really pushed and made a lot of substantive and important input into ICANN policies. So we want to separate those stakeholders from new individuals coming into the system. And, you know, like the East, we value highly our veterans, you know, those with gray hair in particular, and even those who have no hair. And we will continue to use them in a mentorship capacity, particularly with the new stakeholders. We do not want the newer stakeholders to come in and see Nigel and see Bevel and see Carlton and see Jacqueline and feel that, oh, well, there's no need for me. These people are doing all of the work, let them do it. Okay, we want the new people to feel that they are needed and their input is important. So what we plan to do is take a strategic look at the ICANN overall 2021-2025 strategy. And in the delivery of a capacity building session on this strategy, we will integrate the actual role and function of ICANN. Because typically what we do is we have these PowerPoints and we say that ICANN has SOs and ACs and PDPs and all this kind of thing. And by halfway through, you've lost everybody. We're trying to avoid that. And what we are trying to do is look at the global ICANN policy and strategy. First of all, the strategy, and then look a little bit deeper at our Latin American and Caribbean regional strategy and how it directly impacts Caribbean territories and Caribbean institutions and entities. And this is going to be presented, you know, by the Vice President for Stakeholder Engagement for Latin America and the Caribbean, Rodrigo de la Parra, and also our project manager for the projects in the LAC strategy, Rodrigo Salcedo. And the idea is that as we go through those two blocks, the new persons would not only learn about what happens within the ICANN multi-stakeholder model, but also understand how the policies that are developed impact the individual territories. And we are looking for persons who will not just, you know, come to an ICANN meeting to take a trip, but will come to an ICANN meeting to stay the course because they see value in putting their time into policy development. That is the crux of the matter. So I think Secretary General, Acting Secretary General, you've made your first public pronouncement this morning. When the theme said that internet governance matters, you changed that a little bit and you said that internet governance is indispensable. And it is because internet governance is indispensable that we feel we need input from all of our Caribbean territories into policy development. So again, not only do we want our Caribbean voice to be heard, but we want Caribbean persons to become active in policy development, join the working groups, and stay the course because they see the value in what's happening. Now, I notice that on the attendees listing, we are up to at least 47 right now with 14 panelists. So I think I would say to persons from different countries, we are looking for at least 2 people from every Caribbean country, 2 new people to get involved in this new approach to getting Caribbean participation in internet governance. So I will be reaching out to contacts in every country of the Caribbean, trying to get 2 names who we feel are people who will stay the course, and we will take them through the capacity development, the building. We will have our veterans used as mentors to ensure that they fully understand how they can contribute to internet governance and why they should contribute. So in a sense, COVID-19 has handed us this opportunity, you know, to do some internalization and reflection on how we've been approaching inputs to internet governance. And this is the new approach that we plan to take. So I deliberately did not use any slides because I wanted to leave you with that strong message this morning. Thank you very much, Nigel.
Yes, thank you very much, Albert. I think that's a really good approach to take. We've spoken for several years about encouraging new persons. ICANN has its fellowship program. People have come in and I suppose gone out as well. So I think a renew is admirable. So we can definitely support that. I see some comments and questions coming in, so we should have, let's try to leave a little time for addressing some of them. Let me move on quickly then and ask Mr. Shannon Osepa from ISOC to make a few comments about impact on the organization. Shannon?
Yes, I'm here. Let me just share a few slides with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Let me focus a bit on what ISOC has been focusing and will be focusing in this year. So the first thing that we have been focusing and we're still focusing on is what we call development of deployment of community networks. If you look globally, still we have 48% of the globe that is not connected to the internet. So we are looking at smart ways how we can get people connected to the internet. And by developing what we call community networks, this is one of the ways that we use to get more people connected to the internet. In addition to that, we are also promoting IXPs globally and also in the Caribbean. We have another project focusing on encryption. So basically these 8 projects are the projects that Internet Society is focusing on globally, and also those who are applicable in the Caribbean as well. We have a very important project focusing on what we call measurement. And this is focusing on to get relevant data. A lot of times we are talking about different things, but we don't have data to back up in which direction we like to go. So that is why we have been focusing this year on what we call measurement, especially working with academia and others who are focusing on research in order for them to provide us with facts in order for us to help especially policymakers and governments to develop sound policies. We have another technical project focusing on, it's called Open Standards Everywhere. Is the promotion of open standards. So it's just like that. There is another one very relevant to this particular session that we are attending right now. It's called the Internet Way of Networking. And basically what we're trying to do is to continue to defend and promote the way the internet has been working so far. The internet is what it is based on how do you call it? The multi-stakeholder model that we have been using during all the years. So we know there are some threats out there. People or countries would like to challenge the existing way how the internet functions. So that is why we have a whole project focusing how to defend the internet that we are having nowadays. There is another project focusing on what we call manners. Manners stands for Mutual Agreed Norms on Internet Routing Security. If you look at the internet, you have 2 key components. You have the names, the Daniels, the AlbertDaniels.coms that ICANN is focusing on. But you have also the internet routes, for example, like on this particular case, Aaron and LACNIC are promoting. So in order for us to have secure routes, we are having this program to ensure that internet service providers and other operators adhere to best practices to avoid, let's say, internet routes being hijacked and other things happening. And the last project that we are focusing on is called time security. A lot of these let's say, security mechanisms that we're using nowadays, they are attached, or they are, or let me put it like this. Time is very relevant when we are setting up, for example, any specific virtual systems. So if you don't have the time security well addressed, you may still have, for example, that a hacker or someone else can still hack your system. So that is why, to enhance the security system, we are working on not only on encryption, but also on some very time sensitive programs that need to be in place in order for us to secure the whole internet that we're using. So this is basically what we're doing with respect to our focus. Let me then now focus a bit on your specific question on what we have been doing with respect to COVID-19. If we look, for example, at the theme or the title of this particular session, it's very important. I think all of us, in one way or the other, we know what the definition is of internet governance. When we look at the definition of internet governance, we see some stakeholders, for example, governments, private sectors, civil society. When we first had the first definition of internet governance, we didn't have, or the focus was not on technical community and academia. But nowadays, these are also forming part of the definition of internet governance. And this is very important because, let me see, go to the next one. Okay, let me mention a bit more what Internet Society has been doing with respect to COVID-19. What we have been doing is to ensure that especially internet service providers can continue to operate, and also the internet exchange points. So we're not only promoting internet exchange points and working with ISPs, but we are providing them with equipment. We have several, let's say, IXPs that requested, let's say, assistance from us, technical assistance or equipment donation, that we did work with them and also provide them with some equipment. With respect to community networks, and this is much more applicable in South America, given that we don't have any community network operational in the Caribbean as yet. And we have been helping them with equipment as well to ensure that they can continue to maintain their infrastructure up and running. And of course, we have been engaged with all kinds of Caribbean organizations, in this particular case with Canto. Canto has a very specific working group dealing with natural disasters, of which we have been contributing with them. With CaribNOC, as Bevel Wooding also mentioned a while ago, we have been working with them in that regard as well. With CITEL in the wider Caribbean and Latin America, also providing giving some presentations. And one of the things that we have also been doing is to explain or contradict a lot of myths that we are seeing out there with respect to the internet. And I will mention a few of them. So we spend a lot of time, we have been spending a lot of time focusing, educating people, explaining them how the internet works, and in order for them to understand what are myths and what are realities. So when we look at the impact of COVID-19 on Caribbean stakeholders, I think it's very important for us to divide this in a few areas. Remember, when we're talking about internet governance, we are looking at 7 areas, basically. We are looking at security, we are looking at technical aspect, legal, economic development, social, cultural, and human rights. So all the discussions that we're having with respect to internet governance, we can divide them in one of these areas. And with respect to the stakeholders, then we have, on the other hand, we have the governments, we have the private sector, civil society, technical community, and academia. So when we're looking at the impact of COVID-19 on Caribbean stakeholders, and this is something, I've done it myself, so I'm still trying to improve it, but it can help us to, when we are developing some strategies, we can use this as a point of departure, because then you can say, okay, when it comes to government, this is a strategy that I should apply, that I should use. When it comes to technical community, this is a strategy that I should use. So I've tried to put something, to make something visual in order for us to focus and to know exactly how we should be dealing with the challenges that we are facing with respect to COVID-19. So feel free to give me, let's say, some suggestions in order for us to enhance it and make it much more better. But let me try to explain it a bit. For example, if you look at governments, and let's focus now a bit on the Caribbean, if you look at the security challenges that they have been facing, that's big, that's very big, because most of our governments, we don't have, let's say, really online platforms or e-government, let's say, platforms. So suddenly they had to deal with a lot of challenges. They had to move everything to online to still to continue to give service to the community. So with respect to security, the impact has been very big for governments. If you look, for example, I skip a few of them, but you can understand where I'm heading.
Yes, because we are running a bit behind.
Yeah,
so, yes, so summarize it.
Yes. So if you look, for example, at the economic impact, of course, this has been very, very big. If you look at the private sector, for example, then we can divide them in different, let's say, businesses. If you look, for example, at the tourism industry, when it for what relates, for example, to security issues, if they have been using online platforms for, as they say in Trinidad and Tobago, for donkey years, then that should not be a problem because you are already acquainted with online systems. But if you don't have this, then that's a challenge. So that's the way how we should look at this thing. And when we map all this, then we know specifically how to deal with all the challenges. So this is the last thing that I have. So if you look at the myths and realities that we have to contradict, I'm not going to focus on all of them, but the first one that we have had is with respect to what is going to happen with the internet. So the internet is going to break because everybody is online now. So what's going to happen with the internet? So we had to explain to people how the internet functions and to explain to them based on the TCP protocol, which is very robust, nothing is going to happen. So I have the other ones listed here as well. Let me just mention the last one. For example, people were saying it's better to use SMS than to use WhatsApp, for example. But when you use SMS, normally speaking, you have to pay the operator, you know, and if you are just on a Wi-Fi, whatever, you don't have to pay. So all these kind of things, we had to explain people in details in order for them to understand what are myths and what are reality. But in conclusion, one thing is sure, the internet didn't break and it's performing as expected. So I think the engineers back then, when they developed this whole thing, the TCP protocol, they did an excellent job. And that's basically what we continue to promote. That's it from my end. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Shannon. Trying to present a framework there. Probably we could explore that a little bit more later on or in another session, as the case might be. Or maybe you could share it, but that maybe people can comment on. I'll call now our last speaker, Mr. Kevin Swift from LACNIC, to give his remarks. Kevin?
Thank you very much, Nigel. And of course, it's always a blessing and a curse to be the last speaker in a panel. Wonderful points and wonderful views that have already been shared. So my job is almost complete in that sense. So I'll try to again come back on schedule in terms of time. I just wanted to recall the sentiment that we had at LACNIC at the start of this pandemic. On the 15th of March, we were scheduled to have an all-staff retreat where all of our workers, we have many remote workers from Panama, Trinidad and Tobago, going right down through the various parts of Argentina. We were expected to meet on the 15th. On the 11th, the announcement that we were in a global pandemic happened, on the 13th, all of our plans were canceled. And not only at our organization, but probably across all of the Americas, it would seem as if 10 years of discussion on transformation and plans, and even our very strategic plans that we intended to implement this year, had suddenly been condensed into 4 months of just trying to implement various solutions, including remote working for employees, and how we can continue to provide secure, reliable, and resilient services for all of our members. The same question that Bevel spoke about is the same question that we spoke about with our members. Infrastructure. Can the current infrastructure support the increased demand for internet services, but not only in terms of availability, but also in terms of quality? And what do we need to do to meet those attendant issues? I would say that, interestingly, in terms of the demand for internet numbers, there hadn't been much impact to that, insofar that there's probably a momentary pause as organizations grappled with other issues for this pivot. However, the internet numbers, the demands for IPv4, IPv6, and especially our projections for the depletion of IPv4 went exactly as scheduled. So as Albert and others would have said, it would seem as if it's almost business as usual, but with different little things happening in the background for those who are not necessarily in the know. In terms of some trends, of course, the uptick on the usage of technological services occurred. From our CSIRT, we had reported that there had been a severe increase in fraudulent emails and also in phishing attacks. But interestingly, when it came to the issue of root hijacking within the LACNIC area, we had seen that compared to 2019, there had been actually a decrease of root hijacking. And that decrease of root hijacking could be attributed to one thing, meaning, well, a few things. One of which would have been a compendium of best practices that we had been collating and disseminating since 2019. But also we have two key initiatives that work on various technical issues per se. One of those initiatives I'll talk about is the FORT project. The FORT project is a collaboration that LACNIC has with Mexico that deals with shoring up the resilience, security, and stability of routes. And with the FORT project, a key component of that is something called a FORT validator, which deals with the implementation of an RPKI relaying party. And it's something that we invite all of the organizations across the LACNIC region to download and implement. I won't go into it very much because it's a lot of technical details, but of course, if anyone is interested, feel free to contact me for details on the FORT project. The other one, which coincidentally was not specific to COVID, but got an opportunity because of COVID, is the IPv6 challenge. This year brings in the 8th edition of our IPv6 challenge, and our IPv6 challenge is really trying to recognize and award organizations for successful IPv6 deployment. What is required? We ask that these organizations submit documentation on 2 specific IPv6 related issues, and some of those issues, we have an entire list, but I'll give you a few to have in mind what they are. They include IPv6 in residential networks and their support for telecommuting, questions on measurements, deployment, case studies, and the like. So participating organizations are requested to submit 2 pieces of documentation on those issues as it pertains to their organization. And of course, we publicly reward the participating organizations. There's a first and second place that is structured for this competition. There's what you call the moral, or the moral reward among our community for having done a significant step in IPv6 deployment, but we also have a material reward as well that is included. Some of those material rewards include places at our online courses, and in the past we could have spoken about different types of fellowships and scholarships that attend the LACTIC meetings. Of course, all of these things are now online. I think with that, I would probably just wrap up with the, because I know we are running out of time, but
yes, we are.
That's in a nutshell is exactly what I was saying from all of this.
Yes. All right, thank you. I've been looking at some of the questions and stuff coming in, and I've noted that some responses have been typed in. I'm hoping that we have it set up such that all our attendees can see the responses to the questions. A couple kind of left over here, and if I probably could take an interesting looking one. We talked about the networks having stood up well to impacts from COVID-19 and so on. But Deidre Williams from St. Lucia's asks, saying, no one has addressed the current vulnerability of the whole internet. Meaning, I think she's relating to possible fragmentation, which seems to have been precipitated by COVID-19 and a shift in attitude between the US and China. She's saying, thinking that we need to be prepared for a situation in which we are forced to choose sides. If anyone has any concerns or comments about this particular situation.
Nigel, perhaps I can make a quick comment on this one and then allow others to comment as well. I think this is part of the reason now that the rubber is touching the road. This is the real reason why we as a Caribbean need to feature in the discussions that are ongoing at a global level. Because it is in these global discussions that we end up with policies that result in the type of internet we are going to use. Our inputs at ICANN, our inputs at ISOC, LACNIC, ARIN, are inputs that will shape what happens globally with the internet. So we really need to make the effort to be involved in the discussions, participate first of all, so that we can understand the issues clearly, so that before we open our mouths to speak, we are familiar with the issues and familiar with what impacts these issues. And we need to get more persons from different sectors, business, banking, law, civil society involved, so that we get a broad diversity of views into the resultant policies. So we really need to participate so that we can have an impact on the kind of internet that we end up with.
Thanks. Any others want to say anything on that? All right. Maybe Albert, you hit the nail on the head as far as the others are concerned. There was a specific question I saw to Shannon asking about how ISOC could support capacity building at the national levels. I don't know if you mentioned some of the programs of ISOC, Shannon. I don't know if there's anything specific you.
Okay, basically, okay, on a national level, we do have, let's say, our chapters that we normally work with. So they are our voice, our local voice. But given that the focus was more on the pandemic, that is why I did focus more on what we have been doing to help operators, IXPs to move on. So that is why I didn't focus much on chapters in this regard. But yes, of course, we do have chapters, and they are helping us to get the message conveyed to the local level. Because we have been discussing this, Nigel, yourself, with me, and also with the previous Secretary General. at the end of the day, we attend all these global IGFs, but if we don't do anything on the national level, nothing will happen. So you need to have people who are very passionate on the local level to get things done. And we are aware of that. And that is why we are working with, let's say with chapters and also with others who are passionate about the work of the internet to get the message.
Right.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Shannon.